Hey guys. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Awesome. Good to see you guys in there. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you're not too tired because you have a lot of work to do today. All right. Let me just open here. We still have a few minutes before everybody arrives, but we have about 7 people right now. Let's see. Okay, 7. Yep. That's good. Okay, let me see the chat here. Good morning. Here's night. All right, let me just share my screen here so I can start sharing some stuff with you guys. Okay. No computer sound. I think it's fine. Actually, let's do that. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, awesome. So let's see. Still waiting for some people. Like we have 9 now. Okay. Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about the detail, right? Like we're going to get into HD geometry. So last week we were talking about, we are doing like the modeling of the primary and secondary forms. And then the topology, unfortunately, we could not get into like full on topology because that's kind of like, I consider a little bit more basic. And we are kind of like trying to do something a little bit more advanced that, you know, is like really getting to the meat and potatoes of the detail and the photorealism of the portraits. And I mean, like tutorials about topology and best practices and examples you find online, like for the past, 14, 15 years or so. So those classes, they are good if they come with the support, you know, it's like, for example, it always gonna depend on how much effort you're putting on the side, right? So when I'm doing the class with you guys here, I'm trying not to skip. So I'm keeping everything the way it was, like the work that I had on Thursday, I kept the way it was, and I just worked on this guy here over the weekend just to, you know, take my head out of it, just so we can keep working at the same rhythm, I suppose. So during the weekend, I worked on this model a little bit, and I don't know how much work you guys put in your own models, but I've seen some of the progress posted at the, you know, in the, you know, Facebook in the group, and it looks awesome, guys. I'm so, you know, excited to start reviewing everything, but at the same time, the group is so talented. There's so many people with lots of skills, you know, it's like already giving very, very awesome feedback. So I don't even know if I'm gonna have a lot to add, but of course I'm gonna take my own spin on, you know, how I see things. My plan, and I'm gonna do this officially, I'm gonna send an email out tonight, but my plan is to actually do those reviews next Saturday. So basically, like you guys gonna have a deadline until Friday to send me everything. And I'm gonna send in the link, you're gonna get the folder where you have to upload stuff, like to Google Drive. And don't worry too much if you cannot make to the live session, because all I want from you guys, and I'm gonna explain that, is like I want the work, right? Like your progress. I want the reference you're using, and a little bit of a text. You know, it's like some explanation what you're doing at that moment. You know, it's like, or if you don't have anything to show in terms of image, just a little text of what you want to know. You know, some specific question. And then on Saturday, my plan is to actually stream in the morning for 1 hour, and then at night for 1 hour. So it's going to be like 9 in the morning and 9 at night. So like 12 hours apart. That way I'm expecting to actually try to reach most of you guys. So you can, you know, if you have that time available, you can be live and just, you know, be right there with me. But if you're not, I'm going to have all that stuff with me, and I'm going to be just like reviewing anyway. I'm going to just review, and everything's going to be recorded and posted. So you're going to get your feedback anyway. So yeah, so that's all planned, and I'm gonna send the email out with all the information you're gonna need. So yeah, this guy here, I'm just like very fast, like showing you, like the curly hair is a nightmare to work with, because even with the guidelines, you know, it's like it's always a pain. So right now it's very even here. I'm gonna be breaking up stuff, you know, it's like really adding more asymmetry and everything. but I'm actually doing those curls like by hand. So like pulling out of, away from the scalp and just like sculpting each one of them. And basically that's what I have here. Like one side has all the little curls and the other side is just like mushed in there because that was the original guides I had. They didn't give me a lot of form. So I'm actually just sculpting them by hand. And depending on how much more hair and layers are gonna add, and I think you're gonna get some good asymmetry in there and randomness. That's not gonna it's not gonna look too like a Cupid like that, It's so even. But enough with this. Let's go back to this guy here, which is that's still Michelangelo. This guy here, right? Like that's where I stopped last Thursday. At this point here, it's like I said, you don't need to be following real time or anything, but you already have the videos showing how we got to this point, right? So we got to this point, we have a topology. In this case here, I'm reusing a topology I already had. And then last Thursday, I think we spent most of the time just like reprojecting things to that topology. In your case, if you didn't have a topology, explain a little bit how Maya works if you want to do like make your object live and then just like snap and create a topology on top of it in Maya. So that's another way to do it. And of course, if you have a topology that you got from some other model you already have, it's the same process, right? It's like, just like to adjust things and re-snap, right? Like making sure that you always like mask the corners of the eyes, it's like corners of the mouth, things like that. Areas where too close to each other, it's like you can get some intersections and some artifacts when you project. So for example, you're gonna get some spikes and all that stuff. So we kind of covered that. And then at this point, if you got to this, basically what you're gonna have is a model with a decent topology, right? So I'm gonna go back in here. So my model has an okay topology, it's not perfect. But yeah, like I said, like my Hellboy has a much better topology. You see, like I have all those problems here, handguns and all this stuff that I'm not carrying because it's going to be covered. But the topology itself is not like a topology for animation because I don't have like the wrinkles, like those main wrinkles here, for example, in the forehead, right? Baked in there. I don't have them in the topology. So, but it's a good topology for sculpting. Anything in ZBrush that you, as much as you can prevent like end guns, for example, like this one is kind of away from the main areas here. The more square you have, the better is going to be like your experience like sculpting in ZBrush. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting those end guns. Is that kind of stuff that you try to smooth out in ZBrush and kind of never goes away, depending on where you have them. So, but in this case here, that's where we are. We don't have a color. This is just like a concept color that I have in there just to to experiment and see if the likeness is kind of there. We still have plenty of work to do with likeness, but we're gonna have fun doing the detail. So about the detail, first thing I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna transfer this very quickly, or hopefully very quickly, to the next model, which is basically, in this case here, I don't see him like as a very super wrinkly guy. It's not something I'm gonna have, for example, let's say like Dick Smith, the other model I have, as a starting point, because he's not as wrinkly as Dick Smith. But I can use, for example, Rick Baker, which is a model I have that has much less wrinkles, and I can start a little bit cleaner. And then during this process, I'm gonna just recover some of that detail so I have stuff for free. In that case, you're gonna learn in the future, if you have like a model you already sculpted in HD, you're gonna be able to reuse that. But I'm not gonna leave you guys hanging. So my intention is to actually erase entire areas. For example, like erase like the entire detail in the cheeks, and then sculpting the detail, everything by hand in there. And I don't care like having to erase in other areas. The more work I have to do this, the better for you guys to watch what I'm doing. So anything I can do to show you guys how I work on those things. I don't want to skip anything or hide anything from you guys. So at this point here, I have my subtool and I have a bunch of different ones here. Let me just delete this one, which is an old version I had. Delete it from here. And now I have just a head, and then I have like a hair. Let's combine this, actually. The hair and the beard are gonna combine. So let's do merge and then merge down. So I'm gonna merge down, okay? And then the teeth, I can do the same. I can just merge both, so you don't have a lot of subtools to, to be, taking space later. So let's do that. Let's merge the tongue as well, since we are here, because this is all concept anyway. We're gonna have to replace with decent geometry later. So now I have only like the glasses, eyes, the teeth, hairy beard, and then the face itself. So let me just save this this as a tool. I'm not gonna save as normally I do with the file, right? Like file save as, because I don't want to save the project. I'm gonna just save the subtool, and I tell you why soon. So I'm gonna go to stand. I'm gonna name stand2 in here. I'm gonna save it. And at this point, it's a very small file, right? Because I don't have any HD geometry. This is gonna add a lot of geometry to it. But so the reason why I saved as a tool and not as a project is because the HD geometry, you cannot import a model that has HD geometry into another tool. For example, you cannot get like Subtool that's it's HD and import to a different tool. So basically, like if you have HD in that tool, it's going to stay in there. Otherwise, you're going to have to, in the new tool you have, and if you have a subtool that has doesn't have HD, you have to create the HD from scratch, basically. So I'm going to open a file here, which is the Rick Baker file. And like I said, don't worry for now. I'm just going to open to show you, but I'm going to be sculpting it as well. So Rick Baker, and I'm going to open the project. Last time I touched this file was in September last year. So let's see if it's, if it's not falling apart at this point. I'm very self-critic of my work. So, sometimes I do stuff like a few days ago and then I hate already. So I never know when I'm gonna open something, it's gonna look like shit. So let's try it. See, like when you're working with HD geometry, that's what happens, right? Like I have like 71 million polygons in here loading. So it takes a little bit because the way that the HD geometry works, it's not the detail is not there physically in your model. I don't know exactly how Fair programmed this thing, but it seems like it saves everything, all the information in this virtual space, like in maps or something like that. And then every time you enter that mode, HD mode, you actually re-import from those maps and then reconstructs it and shows you the detail. So that's why it takes a couple of seconds to reprocess every time you enter and get out of HD geometry. We already spoke about like the good and bad of HD geometry, which is like the good is the amount of detail we can add. So the camera looks very flat here, which is weird. It looks almost like, yeah. There's something about this camera here that I noticed, this new camera. For example, like I'm switching here and it's not affecting anything, right? It happens sometimes. In perspective, it's on. So I noticed that if I change the crop factor here sometimes, it starts changing, And the crop factor is kind of funny because that's supposed to be the crop factor of a camera and it shouldn't be affecting this that much. So now I'm able to actually change a few things, but not all of them. So 35, 50, and 85 works, 24 and 18 doesn't. So I don't know exactly, it's a little buggy. It's a new feature in ZBrush, so hopefully they're gonna be improving soon. So let's start with, so this is the model I have. It has HD geometry, right? You guys saw in the summit probably in the video. So if I press A in here outside of the model, you're gonna see like a pre-render, kind of like a preview of what the HD geometry looks like. So you see all the detail in there. There's a lot of stuff, have almost 71 million polygons worth of detail, right? But I'm not in HD mode, it's just a preview. If I click and I rotate, then it's gone, right? In order to enter HD geometry, I have to rest my mouse in any area of the model and then press A, and then I'm gonna enter that mode. But for now, we're just gonna get rid of a couple of things here we don't need. And we're gonna use this model here as the starting point to import the new stand Winston. And like I said, this step here, of course, if you don't have anything done in HD, you can pretty much like ignore. And I can just show you how you start the HD from scratch. But since we are here, we're gonna show both. So I'm gonna delete the shirt. We don't need this for this model. The suit, if I need, I can get this stuff later anyway. And then I don't need those eyelashes. All I need is actually, I don't need the goatee. Doop. So let's delete the goatee and the hair. I have the eyes in here, I have the carunculus, and some eyeball reference that I don't need because I'm gonna get from Stan. you're going to see here, for example, I have those things I'm going to show you later. I have my passes in here. Those are non-HD. I don't need to go as far as HD to paint my specular maps. So I paint in non-HD mode, right? And I have a bump. I can see actually if I turn flat color. So this bump here is actually not a, it's more for using for roughness map. So I'm gonna be modulating the surface of the skin using this map, but this is we're gonna look at when we start looking for textures and things like that. So at this point I have my model in there, and I delete everything I didn't want, and I'm gonna click to Polymesh 3D, and I'm gonna load this model we just exported for Stan Winston. So I'm gonna go to Stan Winston here, and I have ZBrush and then 2. So if I go here, here's my model again, right? And so what am I gonna do here? I'm just gonna make sure I have the first subtool. You see, like I have the teeth selected right now. I'm gonna click this first one, which is the face. Oh, there's a mic that's open in there for some reason. I think there's some noise going on. If you guys can mute it for now. Let me just see. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, Rand. So let's just mute you here. Let's see, I think that's it. Okay, so I have the modeling there, and then I made sure that I have selected the face. I'm gonna go back to my Rick Baker model right here. And then I'm gonna go back, you see like I have 1.1 million polygons right now. I'm gonna go back one subdivision level because my intention here is if you look closely, I have all this detail already baked in there. And although I want some of those wrinkles, I don't want all of them. So I'm gonna go one subdivision level less, and I'm gonna import my Stan Winston to this resolution. So at 277,000 polygons in this case, which is one subdivision level less than the highest subdivision level I have before HD. So it doesn't go higher than this. You know, in order to go higher than this, I have to go HD. So my higher before HD is 1.1 million. So I'm gonna go back once again, 277. So I'm gonna go back to my Stan. And if you remember, I actually used the same topology to project. So if you subdivide, of course, you're going to get the same subdivision count, right? The poly count. So I have 277, 18. So I'm going to export this one as an OBJ at this level instead of the lowest, right? I'm going to go to the one less than the highest. So export, and I'm going to give a name here, Stan mid resolution 2. So I'm R2. And then here, I'm gonna go back to this guy. And now I can import straight away right here, right? If they match the poly count, should be good to go. So I'm gonna import it, Stan 2. So now I have that guy in there. And if I go one subdivision level higher, I start seeing some of the stuff that was in Rick Baker. You see, I'm gonna have some artifacts inside of the mouth. I'm gonna have to clean up that mess. Right, but there are advantages of doing that. It's basically like I can have a model with textures and everything that I can render straight away, basically. So if I go to HD mode here to do a preview, all this detail here I'm getting for free. But obviously, you're not going to be that lazy to actually get everything for free because those wrinkles here, it goes from person to person. So a lot of stuff are going to be erasing anyway. But stuff that kind of like, you know, the top of the nose in here, some stuff in the ears, forehead, things like that. I can reuse a lot of stuff, so I don't need to sculpt like all the pores again. I can just selectively pick the areas I want to resculpt and then go from there. But just doing that, I mean, like this model, if I want to bring to Maya, for example, and do a render just to feel it, would be like super easy to do at this point, right? So let's go here and let's import the other subtools. So I actually assembled the entire scene in here. So I'm gonna go to Stan, and then I'm gonna select the hair, back to that model, and I'm gonna go to Append, and then I'm gonna click the hair. So we brought the hair in here. Now it's all part of the scene. I'm gonna go back here, I'm gonna click the teeth, go back to Stan, and I'm gonna append again, and I'm gonna bring the teeth. The last piece would be the eyes, right? The little, oh, actually, still have the glasses, but let's bring the eyes in here. So append, and I bring the eyes. And then the last one, we're gonna go to the glasses. And as you remember, this is all like, you know, concept pieces for now. Nothing is final, but we need to have an idea to help with the likeness. So at this point here now, I have basically like a model with full HD geometry applied, and I have a good starting point to start sculpting, right? In this case here, if you didn't have a model with HD geometry like I do, I'm gonna turn off the coloring here so you can see it. You can see some of the detail in there. So if you didn't have any of those, what you would have to do at this point, you would go to you are basically under geometry, right? So you have a couple of subdivision levels in here. You already subdivided your model, so I have like 4 subdivision levels. So remember, like before going HD, don't pass 2 million polygons. It's very important. If you do, it's gonna basically like be much slower to export the maps later on, right? So at this point, you just, okay, they are muting some cameras in there. Okay, you guys are kind of silent today. And then, so what I'm gonna do here, instead of like passing the 2 million polygons, I stick to like anything before 2 million polygons, the maximum we can get before. In the case of my topology in here, it allowed me to subdivide into 1.1 million. So if I subdivided one time more here, I would get to like 4.4 million or something like that. And then we cannot do that. So that's my limit right here, right? So let's pretend you already subdivided your model and you're about to start HD. So instead of like subdividing here under geometry, you're gonna go to this tab called Geometry HD, and then you're gonna subdivide here. When you subdivide here, you're not gonna see an instant result in here. Nothing's gonna change. What you're gonna be seeing is actually the poly count start to grow here, right? The total points in here, you're gonna start growing and growing every time you subdivide. I would say that if you're working on a head like that, professionally, like doing work for the studio, a full body character, we did stuff like for movies already with probably like, I would say like 80 million polygons, something like that. So it's not like you need a ton, but if you want to get like pore detail, like I'm getting here with the micro displacement and everything, I would say like the poly count I have for the shoulders and the head is pretty good. It's about 70 million polygons. Maybe with around 50, you can do it as well. So that means like if you're gonna do like a full body with the pore detail, I would say like try not to pass like 250 million polygons. If you can get to something, let's say like between 120 to 180, something like that, that's kind of like a sweet spot, I think. But if you want to get like more detail, it all depends, of course, like the way you're planning your topology, right? So if you want more detail in the face and the hands, you plan for that, right? Like you're going to put more topology in more, basically like more polygons in those areas. And then when you subdivide, naturally you're going to have more room for detail in there. And then if it's something, for example, like around the crotch or whatever, like some areas not going to be revealed, right? You're going to be covered with clothes or whatever, or arms. Then you can be a little bit more economic. You know, it's like it's a matter of like planning your topology to actually balance and get you more details. So basically, to create the HD geometry, that's all it takes. You know, just subdivide here and make sure that you're following the total number of points in here. Because if you start with 1.1 million and that's your only model you have at this point, you're going to subdivide one time. It's going to go to 4.4, and you're going to subdivide again. It's going to go to, I don't know, 17 something. And then the third time you subdivide, that 17 something became almost like, I don't know, 70 something million polygons already, right? And then you know you have to stop right there, because if you go higher than 70 million, that's like 280, right? 280 million is already too much. So that you reach your sweet spot right there. So, and that's basically how you're going to create your base for HD geometry. So let's pretend you have your base. Everything is pretty smooth because you don't have those little bumps I already have in here. But we're going to try to pretend that we don't have anything by erasing some areas and resculpting some areas, right? Before we get into this, let's switch for a second here to the plane. So I'm going to switch to this plane 3D. And before I can sculpt on it, you know you have to actually make Polymesh 3D, right? because those are primitives from ZBrush, so we need that. So we're gonna click Make Polymesh 3D. So now it's sculptable. And as you can tell, not a lot of polygons in there. So I'm gonna subdivide a couple of times. I have only like 1,000 polygons worth of polygons in here, so not much we can do with it, right? So subdivide once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. So I have 1,000,000 polygons now, right? Then I'm gonna switch to another color here. And you probably saw this in the summit, but the brush that I created here, basically the way it works, you sculpt on a plane. So all my brushes, my custom brushes, those ones for clay and everything, I start with a plane like this. So I sculpted a form that looks like this. But Kris, it looks like a butthole. It kind of does, yeah, it is true. But this is supposed to be a pore, right? Of course, like you can get like some interesting references if you look for like macro photography of the skin, right? Let's see if I can find anything here. I was looking at some stuff before. So let's see. Let's bring this one up. Actually, there's this one here that's very nice, this website. So this website here is the one that has like the super zoom macro photography, right? Like it's amazing actually. So basically, like this is the address right there, Daniel Bosch Chung. I don't know how you pronounce that. It's weird to me. And then you're gonna notice, like if you start exploring those pictures, pores, for example, the structure of them. If it's a younger person, you're gonna see them very well defined. And then as the person gets older, it's almost like the skin itself, the pores start kind of like fading almost, you know, it's like they become almost like a film. The skin becomes almost like a film, you know, it's like it gets super thin and it's stretchy and it's kind of like dry. So it's kind of weird if you have like a very old person that you're sculpting and all of a sudden you put those very, very like crisp pores in there, you know, it's like almost like it doesn't match. So if you get this lady here, for example, you're gonna look at her face. We're gonna zoom in here. You're gonna see pores for sure, but you see like they start to kind of like blend and kind of become almost like this little pattern that doesn't have like the pores well defined. It's almost like it's just like a pattern, like a waves, right? You get those waves in there. So it's an interesting thing, you know, you study to go through those things. Especially look at this nose here, how furry it is, you know, it's like if you do something like that in 3D, people are like, oh man, this peach fuzz is too strong, it doesn't look real. But like I said before, like, you know, actual humans are very weird. But then if you get someone, let's say this guy here, and let's try to zoom in, oops, let's zoom in to his face, and look at his pores. Of course, like it's gonna change according to the race and everything, right? But you look at his, look how sharp those are, you know, it's like you can definitely see the little dots in there. And when you look at them like this, the pattern is something like, it's not a line, right? You cannot simply like draw a line and put all those dots in the line and the other ones, they kind of go like a zigzag like that, right? And they connect to each other. So, and another thing that's important, if you try to sculpt those guys with a random kind of like distance between them, is not gonna look realistic. They have some kind of like distance that our eyes actually accept as something realistic. If you try to add more space than you should, they don't look realistic. If you make it too tight, so the pores are super tight together, it doesn't look quite realistic, especially in the cheeks, because that's the area where the specular is gonna catch the most. But then areas like the chin and everything else like that, then sometimes you don't get so much of that detail. You have a different type of like kind of like a character for the pores, right? Some of them are just like this pattern again, and without the pores. And then you get here, you're gonna see the pores very clearly, right? And then forehead as well, you're probably gonna see the patterns right here, right? See like the pores very well defined. So if you go to this website, you can start like observing how those pores look like. And to me, when I was doing my exercise, they looked like a little pillow kind of pillowy thing, right? You look at those couches with the little button in the middle and those little things. And then, so as I said before, if I have this as a sculpture I just did, let's pretend I just started this plane and I just sculpted this form in there, which there's no mystery, right? Let me just turn on the back in here. At this point, I believe there's no mystery because that's all it is, right? It's very simple. It's hand sculpted, right? I could add more detail and everything here, but my option was to actually stop right here with this amount of detail because I want to use the micro detail to actually break this up a little further in that, right? So once I have this one set like that, now I have the form in 3D space. So I'm going to turn off my perspective, for example, and now it's like flat, right? And then I'm going to try to zoom in as much as possible to my screen like that. And there's this brush here that's called MRGBZ grabber. So I'm going to click that one. If it's not here available for you right here, if you click at where you load your tools in here, it should be there. So it should be here somewhere. So MRGZ, where is it? This one, right? So this guy here. So I'm going to click on it. And they're going to ask me if I want to switch to the HD, to the non-3D mode, right? So I'm going to switch it. So now I'm not in 3D. You see the edit button here is off. But now the way this works is basically like you create a square starting from the middle. So I'm going to try to find the middle here, kind of like by eye. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to drag. And if you press Shift, it becomes a perfect square. Every time I press Shift, it switches to a square. So I'm going to go all the way around here, and then I'm going to release the button of the mouse. So now it created for me a texture, which I don't need, right? I'm going to just eliminate this texture here. And the alpha, which is what I'm looking for. So I have the alpha in there. So, okay, so let's switch to our model again. So I'm going to go back to my plane 3D. I'm going to draw it here. Click Edit, or just press T, and then Control N to clear the screen. Control N, and then I'm going to zoom in again, and I'm back here. So now the alpha I just captured is right there. This is the new alpha I just created, right? So if I try to use it, you see it's going to have, it's actually pulling up, right? And that's not what we want. We want something that's basically like against the floor. First thing we're going to try to correct is that the fade around it. If I right-click in the mouse, I'm going to just go to the focal shift in here. I'm going to go all the way back to 100, minus 100, right? So if I click now, it's more like a square like that, right? So it doesn't have that fade anymore. So with this square here, now I'm going to have to try to find the mid ground to actually get this as close as possible to that area, right? So that works with the alpha. If you go to your alpha and here you modify, you're going to notice, let's see, so this is the adjustment here, there's the mid value. So I'm going to go up. I'm going to try, like, let's say 50 first, and I'm going to add a little bit of radial fade, which is the RF here. So I'm going to go and I'm going to put probably like, let's try 10. And you see right here, I still can see a little border in there around. So I have a little bit of a halo. It's a different color. So I'm going to try to adjust the mid value here until that's kind of gone. So around 70, let's see, 76. Still can see a little bit. Let's see a little bit higher than that, 81. That looks good. So let's try that. So it's pretty close now, right? It's pretty close to what I have. So we still can see a little bit of it. Let's try to put a little bit more, a little higher. Let's say 100. 100 is too much. Let's see, 90 something. Right? So that's pretty good right now. So this is the one we just created, right? And that's basically like, you know, I just told you how to create that. I'm using the drag rectangle, so there's no mystery in there. By default, your brushes are always like dots, right? But if you switch to drag rectangle, that means like if you drag, you can actually create those things by dragging, right? So I'm gonna erase here, and then, as I said before, the pattern of the skin, if you look at the reference, for example, if I start something like this around here, the next one, if I do right here, and another one right here, another one right here, and I always use the same direction to drag them. So I'm dragging all these down. You're gonna see there is a repetition. All of them look kind of the same, right? So instead of doing that, we're gonna try to do a little bit more randomly, which is gonna be, I'm gonna be doing this in the face soon, but just for now, let me see what time that is, okay. Just for now, it's gonna be like this. I'm gonna create one, and I'm gonna click and then drag down, for example, right? The next one, I'm gonna click and I'm gonna drag to the side. Actually, let's do better than that. Let's do a little closer here. So one, pulling down, I'm gonna make bigger like that so you can see. The next one's gonna be like up, for example, dragging up. I'm gonna try to go towards that one, so those little lines, they kind of like try to connect to each other. Then the third one, I'm gonna go kind of like a triangle here, and then I'm gonna point them towards those guys. So you see, like, it's almost like those little arms in here, they're reaching to the next one. So the next one's gonna be here. Always like trying to get like a triangle, kind of like in between them. Again, like my approach, like I said before, this is nothing scientific, right? It's how I observe things and how I kind of like, you know, it's like I figured out this works for me. So when I have this kind of structure in my renders, I actually get very good results, but not necessarily, you know, it's like it's the actual thing, you know. It's a artistic interpretation, I guess, of the pores, right? Painting an impression of what I'm seeing. So let's go here. So basically, like each one of those, when I'm dragging like that, I'm actually trying to make a variation of the, you know, it's like if you just click and start spinning like that, you can add variation for the angles, right? So that's pretty cool, because you can get some, you know, it's a little bit more random because you have like all those possibilities of just like doing that. And then, like I said before, I'm not too concerned about how clean they look in between, because a lot of this is going to be modulated with the micro displacement map that we're going to have, which is going to be almost like a fractal version of this, although not with the pores that deep, right? We are not going to have all those micro pores inside pores. We're going to have mostly those little arms and little rays in here trying to connect with each other. It's basically like a little pattern that's going to break up right in the middle. So for the pores, basically that's the pore I use for everything. You can, if you want to, you can do exactly like I did here. For example, this triangle kind of pattern like that. And then if you're happy with it, for example, if you want to save some time, you can simply do a drag rectangle again, you know, if you do right in the middle, and then create another brush that has actually all this little structure already there for you, right? So if you're going to do like a forehead, you have all this stuff ready. In my case here, I'm gonna keep working with those guys. I have one that's a little pattern. I noticed that when I use like patterns like that, like from a grid like this, for some reason doesn't quite look as naturalistic, even if I try my best to actually put them together. So I tend to do a lot of stuff by hand anyway, you know. So this is like the basics of the pore, right? The pore detail I'm sculpting. It's about the structure, try to keep triangles like that, you know, it's like kind of like a zigzag pattern instead of like a line, right? That you just go like that, you know, that doesn't look very natural. And then you go, I don't know, you know, kind of like, that doesn't look natural. But if you have something that's more like structural, like this, you know, it's like you see those connections in there. It's almost like a synapses, right? Like those guys trying to connect with each other. Then it's much more natural. So the other thing I do, I have this other brush here, which is very simple to make. I can show you guys. It's called Skin Random. That's how I called it. And it's using this brush here, actually Alpha 58 from ZBrush. This one is already present in ZBrush, 58. And then my alpha, the settings, they look like this. I don't know if you need to change anything. I don't know if I tweaked anything. But if I did, when you're comparing and making your own in there, that's basically the values you're going to be using. See, like I probably like tweaked this curve that's normally like it's just a straight line. I curved it a little bit, maybe to add a little bit more of sharpness to it. You see, like if you do this, you're going to see it disappears quite a lot right there, right? So it makes like all the mid levels disappear, and this way the opposite is more like, you know, reveals a lot, right? Go back in here. So I probably add a little bit of sharpness there for some reason. So that's how it looks like. The values are all there for you guys to copy. You can pause the video. And then for the spray, that's what I'm using. Again, by default, ZBrush uses the dots, but I'm actually using the spray. And the spray here, the settings are the flow is at 0.25. The color you can ignore because we are not using color. You're just using the sculpture part. The scale is at 1, and the placement is at 0.25. So this alpha here with those settings, what it does is actually pretty interesting. If I draw it using a direction, let's make a little bit less intense and a little bit bigger so you can see. So if I drag in a certain direction, this is really good to add directionality of your to your stuff. For example, if you have like a skin stretching, you can use those guys. Combined with the pores, depending on the scale, it works really well. So this is one thing, is to actually just like drag in a certain direction, right? So it gives you this effect. But then if you use it in a very circular motion like that, you start getting a very interesting pattern. And of course, like if you're doing this, try to avoid going over the same spot over and over. So for example, if I do too much in here, of course, you're gonna start breaking into a million pieces and there, it's not gonna look nice. But if you just do enough to go like to different areas every time like that, so you get this very interesting leathery pattern, right? So if you do that, for example, in combination with those guys, let's pretend it's not your intention to use, for whatever reason, the micro displacement. Or you want to simulate what the micro displacement would do in here. So let me just make a little bit less intensity here at 5. And I'm going to just do a little work in there just to break up. And you're going to see how much more organic it looks, right? Of course, we are looking at the skin like a very clean skin here. What adds all the realism, of course, is going to be the nicks and bumps and dents and all the imperfections of the skin that we're going to be using. You know, it's like moles, things like that, right? So at this point, basically, like with those two little brushes here, you can do a lot with it. You know, when we start modeling in the actual model, we're going to see this stuff in practice. And then those two brushes are very useful, as you can tell. And then we have another one here. Let's say I have this skin pores random, which basically what I'm using is, again, the spray. So the spray here, the settings are placement at 0.5, scale at 1, color doesn't matter at this point, flow at 0.25. The alpha I'm using is the alpha number. Which one is that? Oh, it's not pre-selected here, huh? I think it doesn't quite matter that much. Let's see, like let's try with 35, maybe no, 35, let's see, 38. Yeah, 38 is better. So alpha 38, and then here in the alpha settings, I'm using a little bit more contrast in here, so 1.20, 967. And then the rest should be fairly the same. Again, I'm pulling a little bit the curve towards the right, just to add a little bit more sharpness. And if I click the right button, my focal shift is at minus 44. And then my draw size 71, intensity at 8 by default. Oh, and by default, I set it up to actually bring it up, actually down instead of up. So if I try to use it here, you're gonna see it just adds enough bumps, like negative bumps in here, right? It's just to add a little bit more of a kind of like a randomness to the skin. So if I want to do the opposite effect, of course, I'm gonna press Alt or just click Add here, right? And then you're gonna get the opposite effect. And then I have a couple of variations of those things, right? So for example, if I had this applied to this area here, it starts to break up that evenness, right? So it's a very useful brush, you know, it's like to just help to break up things. But then if I want something a little bit more precise, let's say skin pores nose. So I have this one here, custom, and then let's see this one here. So I have a variation of that one using another alpha. I think this one is actually with 39, alpha 39, yep. I have this one, placement 5, scale at 1, and then flow 25, kind of like default, basically. And let's say my right click here, my focal shift is normal, like there's nothing special about it. Intensity of 14. And then the alpha, I'm tweaking it quite a bit here. So I'm pulling this into a point. Remember that this is basically like the point of your pen or pencil upside down, right? So the point is right here at the top. I'm using a radial fade, and everything else should be basically default. And then this is basically a variation of the other one I just showed you guys, but this one has more of this effect right here, right? So if you want to do bumps, for example, like for the neck, you can use something like this, you know, if you want to do something fast. Or if you want to do more plan, of course, you can get and do one by one and switch from stroke, from spray into drag rectangle, right? But if I want to do something that's a little bit more sparse, for example, if I do this, you see there's a lot of points in there per square inch. But if I switch to flow to 0 here instead of like 0.25 that I had at 0, you get it more spread out like that. So it's kind of easier to control, you know. So I can do my little reverse version in there. So I get like, you know, those bumps in the neck, I can do like that. So all those things, you know, combined, you can start adding more and more complexity to the texture, right? We're gonna do this all in layers, not in layers, you know, literally layers, because HD doesn't support layers here. But by layers, I mean like we're gonna do this in steps. Let's go to just with those ones here, we can start doing some damage already in the model. And then later on, we can, you know, just sculpt stuff like very custom and just get stuff even more broken up. So let's see, let's go back to my stand here and let's have some fun with the model itself. So he's gonna look weird, but we're gonna hide everything. Just gonna keep his weird face there. And we're gonna start with cheeks. So I'm gonna remember, like when I said before, when we're starting to sculpt in HD, first, before I start here, let's just clean up a little bit of the inside of the mouth in here because we got all this noise. Of course, if you're starting from scratch, you should not get that right now. I'm getting just because I already had stuff before. And this model is quite different from the other one. Big Baker didn't have an open mouth like that. So I'm gonna turn all the way around to the side like that, and then press Shift, of course, just to make sure it locks, right? Make sure that perspective is off. And then from the side, I can just rest my mouse around the area when it's sculpt. Because like I said before, the HD geometry, the way it works, it kind of like projects a cylinder. It's an invisible cylinder, just goes through the model, right? So if I click right here, or just rest the mouse around here in the cheeks, I'm just gonna press A, making sure that I'm at the very top, right, of subdivision level of before HD. And then if I do, then it should enter HD mode. In this case here, I got about 35 million polygons worth of detail in this area, right? But one thing we can do better than this, you see like this 35 million polygons includes the sockets for the eyes and the mouth. We don't need that. So let's get out of here first. Go back, I'm gonna press A again to get out of HD. And let's do something very quickly here. I'm gonna go to the plugin and under UV master, let's pretend you already did your UVs, right? I'm counting that you guys already know how to do your UVs by now. So here I can just say work on clone because it's not gonna allow me to do anything here. It doesn't have an option to flatten it to see how the UVs look like. So I'm just gonna click work on clone. It's gonna create another subtool for me. Right there, right? So now that I have that subtool, it allows me to do a flatten here. So this is how my UVs look like. So I have 5 UDIMs. One is just for ears and the bottom of the neck, and then I have the neck in here, and then the face in there. And those are all the insides, right? Like the inner pocket of the mouth. I have the inner sockets of the eyes, right? So that's the UVs. Let's pretend you guys already did. Either you did in ZBrush with UV Master or in Maya or any software you prefer. So I'm gonna get out of here, unflatten, and I'm gonna go back to my model, right? So now I know that this model here have all the UVs in place, right? So if let's pretend like you brought your model first here and didn't have any poly groups, your model is going to come like this. It's going to come like all in a single color. So if you go to poly groups and you turn on the poly frame here, right, everything's going to be a single color. But if you go to UV groups, what's going to happen is that it's going to create like 5 different groups in here because there are 5 different UDIMs in there. But let's say you want to break up even further because you notice that I have 5 UDIMs, but I have a bunch of pieces all separate inside of them. So we're just going to say auto groups with UV. So if you click that, now you have each one of the parts you had before. It's going to become a little polygroup, right? So that way it's very easy to hide stuff. So we're going to start by hiding the inside of the mouth here, for example. I'm going to hide that thing. We don't need it. And we're going to hide the inside of the eye sockets. I don't need it. There's another piece right there I don't need. And just to prevent any accident, we're just going to hide the ears. And I even have the little eardrums in here, right? Let's say I don't need to go that far, but let's hide this. It's not even going to get there. I mean, it's going to stop probably around there. So now it was a very easy way for me to hide all those things. So now if I go back to my highest level here, and I'm going to try that again. Remember, I just got a little circle in there because I had all the inside stuff, and that was just like, that was stealing a lot of polygons from my HD geometry. So I'm going to press A again. And now when I enter HD geometry, you're going to see a much larger area. See, like I got basically the entire face in one pass, right? Less ears, of course. The ears are not there. So basically, let's go back here. Let's put a little color so you can see it, not so white. So at this point here, this is all HD geometry. In your case, you probably don't have any detail in there. So that's why I said like I'm going to erase a bunch of things here. So let's start with that. Go to my subtool in here. Let's get an area that is it's good for us to start sculpting. And let's erase this entire piece here. So let's, one thing, since you're working with a bunch of polygons, you get millions of polygons at the same time, right? I have 35 million. Sometimes it's hard to erase stuff if it gets too dense in a certain area. If it's too hard for you, for example, like it's not showing any result when you're smoothing things, even at 100% of intensity, sometimes it's better to just go one subdivision level lower, right? And then maybe 2 even, you know. So now I'm at 8.8 million polygons, and I'm just going to smooth it out. So this entire region here, we're going to resculpt. Let's see. Let's go further. See if we can go here. So we can show some detail in there. I'm going to resculpt this entire thing. Because I really want to show you guys instead of just like, oh yeah, you do like this and then I just disappear and come back and everything is there for you. That's not okay, because that's not the purpose here. So let's go back in subdivision level, one more level. So I've met 2 billion polygons only now, and I'm going to smooth even further, right? So you're going to see now we're going to have a very smooth. Just make sure that we eliminate all this detailing here, because that's the fun part. Not. So let's see. Go back one subdivision level. One up. Smooth again. Now that's very small detail. I can smooth again. Right? And then I'm going to go up again. So you see, like, even inside of HD geometry, you still have subdivision levels. It's not like you go to HD mode and you cannot go back in resolution. But of course, your limit is going back as far as your highest subdivision level before HD, right? So it's not going to get lower than that. Remember that my subdivision level in HD was, so you see, like, I'm at maximum now at 35 million polygons. So this is as smooth as I can get now. So we are ready to sculpt. So if I go back in subdivision level inside of HD mode, you see like, oh, it's showing like only 554, because this is all basically like I'm sculpting in HD, right? It's not including the insides of the mouth and the ears, so that's why I'm showing that. But it should go as low as the subdivision level, I believe, like after the highest before HD geometry. But in this case here, that's all we need. If I don't want to get confused of what I can sculpt in here, I'm just going to turn solo, and that shows me exactly what I'm sculpting. This is all the HD area I have available for sculpting. So I'm going to go back in subdivision level, go up. I should open the mic for you guys. It's about 5 minutes, or actually 7 minutes for you guys to talk to me. But yeah, I mean, like, feel free to ask any questions. Just be mindful of the other people. You know, it's like sometimes the questions are related to very basic stuff. You know, it's like, and although I'd love to, you know, to just spend time and explain everything, sometimes the people who actually have more experience might be a little, you know, so be mindful of that. But I don't mind just explaining at all. So I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna go to my single pore brush, the one we just made. And the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start with the cheeks in here. And at first, it's gonna look very weird. Before you start filling up all the areas, things look a little bit weird for a little bit, and then start, you know, falling into place later. And then all this detail I'm gonna be sculpting here. You know, it's like if I want to do the entire face, of course, it's gonna take me a couple of hours. So I'm gonna sculpt part of it here, and I'm gonna keep working on it after the class. And it's gonna be the same with you guys. You know, it's like you probably gonna start working on something, and then gonna have to put the time to actually make it happen, because there's no automatic button here. And then you can see I'm completely symmetrical right now. This is the part that actually fights the likeness, right? Because there's no way to create likeness with symmetry. So what we are doing here is kind of like an idealized, you know, symmetrical version of the guy, but not necessarily the guy just yet. But this is just to save us time with the sculpting, because I'm going to sculpt both at the same time, both sides at the same time. So let's start here. Let's go back here and bring up, maybe so you guys can see, we can use a little reference just for scale of this guy here. Can just keep it in the background. Although he's an older guy, right? His pores are probably not going to be like this, but they're not going to be like that old lady either. So it should be something in between. But I want to use that just as a reference for distance at first, right? So to make sure we get the same side, so we're going to start right there. And for the intensity, at this point I have 42. I'm going to start, yeah, I would say like between 35 and 42 in my case here is working fine. So I'm going to just do like that. Let's start it. So we're going to start with one guy like that. And like I said, it's going to look a little weird at first. And then it might look a little nicer once we are done with this whole section, which I don't know how far I can go with it. That's why I think when I open for the questions, you guys can fire, and then I can stop doing what I'm doing and then just like explain to you, and then go back in here. But what I'm trying to do here at first, to actually try to keep the distance between those guys consistent. And like I said before, kind of like trying to create this kind of zigzag kind of effect with keeping like triangles in between them. And if I get one that's kind of like out of place, I just like redo it. And like I said before, just like trying to keep kind of like rotating them from time to time. So I kind of like do one and like that. So that's, as you can tell, this is going to be like a, you know, a lot of work to do, but that's the point where you actually, if you have music, you know, I work all the time with music. It's been a little difficult for me to do the classes without any music, but yeah, I guess you guys like to hear the information more than listen to music. So about 10:28, about 2 minutes, I'm gonna open it, so you guys can talk to me about it. So you see, like, at some point, for example, like if they are too far apart, I can add little fillers, sometimes like with a little bit less intensity in between them, because at the end of the day, I need those guys, like the strong ones, to be the dominant ones. But then in betweens, I can actually use different textures like the ones I showed you guys before. And I can just use those ones, you know. So you see, like I'm starting to, I didn't pay too much attention to the distance in there. I got one a little bit different. Yeah, I started like get a little bit too close, I guess. Because I'm talking and talking. Stop talking. Just do it. Okay, so let's eliminate some of those. Okay, let's try to keep the distance a little bit more. Another thing that's challenging, I don't know if you guys use a Cintiq, is that if you're doing that direction, like I was going like from right to left, you start covering everything with your hand and then you don't see anything. So that's why it's better if you're sculpting like left to right. So you can actually keep seeing, depending on how you hold the pen. In my case, I hide everything with my hand. But it's basically a matter of getting used to the distance. And then once you kind of like have a little pattern and it kind of like condition your brain, you start doing this much faster, right? But at this point here, I'm also not going to be super precious because there are things we can do about it. But I'm going to try to at least keep some kind of consistency in the distance. Doesn't need to be perfect, but consistent, I guess. And then, of course, like with the stretch that we have because of the facial expression, we're going to start like actually changing some things with the pores. Like the direction of them, we can actually force them to look like they are stretching. Oh, let's get that one. Oh, too close. And the size as well, right? Like trying to keep them fairly similar. It doesn't need to be the same size, but like fairly similar. And when I'm getting to this area here, I'm starting to get a little bit more tight together. So just slightly. So the pores are a little bit smaller and a little bit more tight together. And then I'm going to start spreading out a little bit more here as well. It's if you go to my Instagram, you're going to see like there's I think like 1 or 2 videos of me doing this entire process for Dick Smith. And it's kind of, it's a little entertaining because it's just like, it's in fast speed. So you just see like those things like populating. So it's like it goes over his mouth and then goes everywhere. And then when you see like everything's kind of finished, but it's just like, you know, it takes time to do it. So it's going to look very artificial for now before you do the other passes. But that's, oh, I think I just did, oh, there you go. Let's just open the mic for you guys here. I'll mute all. And then please, you mute yourself again if you're not talking. And then any questions go and you guys are free to talk. Is it okay to follow so far? Like it's or is a little.
So I've never used HD geometry.
Okay.
And I have a quick question. Let's say I was doing a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And I, you know, would love to have the whole thing be one giant piece. Mm-hmm. Is that possible with HD geometry? Can I just like isolate sections, detail the heck out of it, and then bring it, you know, and just kind of like keep a displacement for every UV region and it still be one mesh?
Yeah, you don't need to keep UV displacements. I mean, like if you subdivide the entire thing like I did before, let's say like a dragon, you're gonna need, let's say close to 200 million polygons to make sure that you have a ton of detail in there. Mm-hmm. So with 200 million polygons, you can put I think like you can cover the dragon, you know. You might have to do in parts, for example, if you need, if you have horns, for example, right? Instead of like baking the horns within the body, you can actually separate those horns as separate subtools and then create HD geometry for them as well. And then you have the body separated from them, but both subtools are HD. And then in that case, it's just a matter of like getting out of that area that you're sculpting and then getting in again in a different area. And then at the end of the day, it's basically like you're going to be covering, you're going to go like, you're going to do a chunk of the tail as HD, then you're going to go up another chunk of the tail in HD, and then until you cover the entire body with HD, you know. But it's always the same mesh, and you don't need to export any displacement maps. Just at the very end, when you have everything there, then you can export displacement maps for everything. Oh, you can fit a lot of polygons, man. It's really amazing.
Well, from that, I guess that branches me off into another question.
Yeah.
Well, it's a related question. At one time, a while back, I was making a Hulk that was going to be used for printout, right?
Yep.
And when you do that, you have to like have freaking balls of the wall, just crazy amount of geo.
Yes.
And to do that, you needed to like break up that mesh into like multiple pieces so I could have enough detail in the hand and enough detail in the arm. And it was, how do I get this HD geo to a real thing so I can use it for 3D printing?
To a real thing? You mean like get the, instead of like having those in maps, the way it works, you want like the real baked geometry in high resolution, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I can decimate it and make it work. But
so I would say this. So for example, if I have this mesh here right now, it's about 35 million polygons the way I have it, right? If I try to bake this right now, it might be too much. But let's say like if I hide half of it, and I have like 70 million polygons at this point. If you have that, for example, like you hide a chunk of it, and you can click make Polymesh 3D. When you click that, it's basically bakes into a geometry. It creates a different subtool with everything baked in it. Yeah. So, but the thing is that the catch is that it loses any UV detail. So for example, if it's just for sculpting, you should be fine. But if you're planning to do something else with it, the UV is going to be wiped.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, man, no problem.
Hey, Kris. I don't know if you have said it already because I woke up a little bit late today.
It's okay.
I've seen that you put like a micro detail after you do all this stuff. Do you use alphas or it's like a projection or?
Oh, sorry, I missed the last part. Like to do the micro detail, what?
I've seen that over this detail, this handmade detail, you use like a micro detail on top of it.
Yes.
It's an alpha or it's a kind of projection or what kind of?
No, this is going to be a map that you can do either way, like with the tiling. I do in Maya, right? You can do it tiling, or you can do with a big resolution, high resolution mesh map. So I have a map right now that's about 8K, and the map is kind of like similar to what you're seeing here. Is this pattern of pores, but not so much with the depth of each pore. So it's basically like more this crisscross kind of pattern.
Okay.
And that's the one that actually breaks up everything in Maya. And the thing that I do to make sure that it helps me with the roughness, because we want to make sure that the nose is going to look shiny and the forehead's going to be shinier, right? Like the lip's going to be shinier, and then some other area is going to be a little bit more rough. I modulate everything with the bump height map. So basically, like this map I have here is called bump depth. So if I just switch to this one here. Basically, like this map here is very simple, and it modulates. So you're gonna have like those areas like very dark, where the bump is almost like non-existent, and then when you see a little bit lighter, is gonna be like the highest spots. So those areas are not gonna be very shiny. So yeah, we're gonna be modulating with those.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah. I hear kids.
That should be mine.
I'm pretty sure mine are sleeping, so.
Kris, if you can tell now, I think the same question I'm going to ask again.
Yeah.
Now, I'm mostly into collectibles, so how to get the HD geometry to the print? If you can cover that again.
To get the high resolution to print, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, like let me try to do it here. I don't know if it's gonna work fine, but let's try. So for example, like if I had a high resolution mesh like that, right? This is my HD model, and I wanted to print just the eyes, for example. So let me just do like a Control Shift, and I'm just gonna isolate that. Let's see how many polygons I got here. So I have 12 million polygons, which should work kind of fine. So I'm gonna just click Make Polymesh 3D. Click on that one. So now you see, like, it created this new mesh in here for me, a new subtool that is basically like with everything baked. If I click, uh-oh, kind of froze a little bit. I hope it's not. Oh, okay. Don't freeze on me, ZBrush. So let's just go back to display and then show the back of it. So you can see that everything's in there. Let's lock this camera here. Okay. Symmetry. Yeah, so this is the model right now without the HD. So if I press A here somewhere, it doesn't do anything. So that's baked. So if I set this model here to print right now, you would print. And basically, like you can do, if you have the HD model in there, you just do that by selecting. I would say like don't go too much higher than this, like maybe like chunks of 15 million polygons, because sometimes like at 20 million polygons, maybe ZBrush can get a little in trouble. You know, it's like trying to use the memory for that, but it should work in general. So let me just go back in here, back to this drama.
Do you have any idea what sort of memory that I should have to get those details? Maybe 32 GB or 16 GB RAM?
What do you mean? Oh, to export the displacement maps?
Yeah, get into those type of details. I mean, about 35 million polygons.
Oh, to get everything into to export?
No, I mean, what sort of a memory card I should have to work smoothly?
I'm sorry, your microphone is a little, it's hard for me to understand.
And I'm asking what sort of memory I should have, like.
Oh, the memory? Oh, yeah. Memory. The more the better. Okay. The more the better. I mean, like in my case, in my computer, I have 96, right? 96. And you can see like I have 63 here. So it's using about 36 right now. So I would say like 32 would be too little. So at least like 64. Yeah. Because if you want to go in work in HD, 64 would be kind of like ideal. But if you have like, let's say 128, even better, you know. But I mean, like ZBrush always going to give you something around this number, unless you tweak this in your preferences in here. So if you go to, let's say, is it geometry? No, I forgot. It's been such a long time. Let's see, geometry. I thought there's something here, memory. So if you go to memory, you see like HD preview max polygons, and then max polymesh per mesh, maximum polygons per mesh. So you can actually tweak this one to have more, but normally like you get a message from ZBrush saying like, oh, this might not work very well, blah, blah, blah. In my experience, it's always gonna hit a limit of like close to 40 million polygons, and it's not gonna pass that, even with all this memory free, right? So in this case here, I would say like, even if you have more than 96, it shouldn't affect ZBrush that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, I'm back here. So this entire area here, I can start, some people, they prefer to do like the directionality of stuff first and then do the pores next. I do kind of the opposite, but I don't mind showing you guys here, for example. I can do a mix of two. So that one I had before, the skin pores random, actually the skin random I have that uses that little alpha in there. I can use that one now just to help me to just define some directions in here, right? So let's try to do a little bit of a stretch going this way. Let's see. Let's get a little bit more intensity. Oh, and I'm gonna increase the flow here. It was too low now. So 0.25 was the default. 0. Oh shit. 0. Oh, cannot even type. Okay, let's put by hand. 0.25. So if I do this, I can get some direction now around here. Then I can put the pores on top of it. That can help us to actually create some kind of directionality for the pores. Remember, like I was saying before, this area here, normally the pores, the direction is kind of like this, you know, it flares out and then connects to that area. Just gonna do a little bit of it, not too much. And then around here, can do some more towards the outer area, and then start doing the opposite around here, basically like flaring this direction. And then here there's some stretch that's gonna happen this way because the mouth is being pulled. I'm just gonna add some guys here. And then I can start adding some pores to cover up this whole thing. And then, like I said before, see, like this was kind of custom for what I had for Vic Baker, and here is already not working that much. So this entire area probably going to erase and just redo it like more like nicer, you know. Maybe clean up a little bit of those, you know, blackheads in there, and yeah. Whatever I can get for free, I'm gonna take it, but a lot of stuff here I'm gonna be redoing like I normally do with all those models. So I'm gonna get some pores around here, this area as well. And I'm gonna start getting them a little bit more concentrated. I normally do them very small and close together around here. And then I start like spreading out when it gets closer to the nose. So I'm gonna get them just enough right there. And then of course you can play with intensity, right? I'm using always 40 here, but you can get a little bit shallower at some point, especially with the older person, right? Like I was mentioning before, like if it's an older person, you can actually, hey guys, I'm hearing a lot of noise out there. If you guys are not ready to talk, if you can please just mute, and then you just open it when you're ready, and then I'm here for you.
Can you add a color to your HD?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, like HD is for everything. You can actually, all the texture you're gonna be painting later is gonna be in HD. Yeah.
So I noticed that you did the blackheads on Rick Baker.
Yep.
Would it have been possible to import in the color information with that as well? Like say you wanted some darkness to the blackheads, or say you had a mole that was a dark, or
yeah. I mean I have my color in here, right? So the color has, for example, if I switch to a flat color, it already has some darkness in there for those guys. But I'm planning to erase a couple of them because I don't want to look that lazy, you know? So whatever I can use, but at the same time, a lot of this custom veins and things like that, my plan is to actually erase and do a nicer job with that. And then we're going to get into this whole thing about how creating this variation for the skin, and everything here is hand painted, right? So yeah, we're going to get into all this stuff. But for now, we're just going to concentrate on the detail, and then the texture is going to come next for sure.
Would it make sense to do them at the same time, though?
If you're doing the blackheads, yes. Then you can actually just put a color in here, right? Like turn on the RGB, select a color, and then you can sculpt. I have this Pore brush that I created here, Blackhead actually. Let's see, which one is that? They have Pimple 3. Did I name Blackhead? No, I don't think I did. Let's try this one here. No, that's not it. But I have it. One of them is actually a blackhead. I think I named Blackhead. Single pore, multiple pores, barnacle, pimple, stubble. I was pretty sure I had one.
Because I guess what I was imagining, and maybe you've probably already tried this, and you can tell me if it's a crazy idea, is like maybe you flood the whole model with like a mid-tone gray. And then maybe the pores as you're making them, you make them into like a very dark color. That way they reflect more when you put them in the gloss map. And so it feels like there's oil coming out of each pore. Does that make
Yeah, I never thought about that.
Oh, okay. Well, it might be interesting. I think I'm gonna try it on mine.
Yeah. So like for this guy here, for example, I found it. So this one is called Pimple 1 for whatever reason. But you see like the way I created the alpha here, it's like it's the alpha 39 again, but the alpha here for the curvature, I created this kind of crazy pattern here that goes, remember, like this is the top, right? So this is like the top of the pimple, and it's the point of our pen, and then it goes down all the way, creates a cavity, and goes up again around it. So when you draw it, it creates this kind of crazy thing like that, look. So if you have that with a color, so let's turn on the color in here, and I put like a darker color, not too saturated. And if I do it again, then you get basically your black hat in there with a little color.
Perfect.
Yeah, but you see, like it's very even. Of course, with the additional textures on top, then it's gonna look a little bit less perfect than that, but it works fine. And then let's go back here and turn off this color so we are not too confused. Oh, what did I do? Oh, right here, color. And then I'm gonna keep working on this area here, and you guys keep asking.
Hey, Kris.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, so I have a question about working on asymmetrically model. So my model is fairly asymmetrical.
Asymmetrical, huh? Yep.
Yeah. So how do you recommend to approach that? Because I spend a lot of time trying to, I don't know the word, resymmetrize him. I don't know, but yeah, because I thought I remember you said that you like to break the symmetry later on.
Yeah.
The process.
Yeah. I would say like the first thing is to get your model is perfectly symmetrical when it comes to topology, right?
No.
Oh, the topology is not symmetrical?
No, I like to throw zero measure and then just click buttons and then sculpt.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Because
but I did but my currently topology it's symmetrical, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So if your current topology is symmetrical, then it's easier to just like recreate a symmetry, right? The thing that we noticed, I was talking the other day, I don't remember who was talking to me. I think it was Clint, maybe. He was saying like that you have to make sure that the center line in your model is completely symmetrical. So if that center line is completely symmetrical, it's kind of easier for ZBrush to understand what's going on with it. So for example, like if it is not completely symmetrical, you can try to use like a scale in ZBrush to make a, select just that center area and then try to make it completely like, it's like straight. Or even go to Maya, for example, double click that middle line and just bring the scale like X, right? Like completely down until it's completely straight. And then bring back to ZBrush, and then you go from there. Because if that's correct, and you get the symmetry correct in there, then you can just like create a morph target first, then resymmetry the whole thing in ZBrush, and then you have that morph target to switch back at any time, But it's important that you have the model symmetrical for this sculpting process. Like you said, I mean, like the symmetry is not like you need to wait all the way to the end. I could have broken it up already, and then just save the morph target and doing that way. But I mean, like I know the process, the way it goes. And at this point, it's in the back of my head, like that my likeness is not there because it's completely symmetrical. So that's going to be a next step for me for sure.
Okay. You're going to show this process of your breaking the symmetry and like.
Oh, yeah.
Reprojecting. Okay.
Yeah. No, not reprojecting. I mean, like, it's
updating the subdivisions. Is that what you said? Like the.
No, I mean, like I can break the symmetry right now. It's like I could go to my lowest resolution or maybe like a few subdivision levels higher than that. Break the symmetry. So actually, when I say like break the symmetry is not breaking the topology symmetry, right? It's just breaking the forms. Just like making sure that you're carving, that you're carving your wrinkles in a different way. For example, that you're lifting one side of the nostrils, for example, this is what I'm saying in terms of like breaking the symmetry, because the topology has to be untouched. It has to be symmetrical.
Oh no, yeah. That's what I meant.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, we're gonna go through this process, you know. But there is no reprojection involved from this point on. All the reprojection, thank God, is done. Well, it took me the entire Thursday to do that. It's just gonna be a matter of like saving morph targets at this point, you know.
I have another question.
Yeah.
If I'm ambitious enough to like to do a full body of the model, I see that you did on your Hellboy, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So how many
polygons?
UDIMs? Yeah. No. How many UDIMs you?
Oh, we can take a look.
That?
Let's see. We can take a look right now. Let's see. Hellboy.
Just out of curiosity to see how close the details like can hold.
Sure. Let's see. Yeah, you got that that session that I spoke about, like how to plan, right? Like for detail, so we can get like the maximum out. Yeah. So that's basically using the same philosophy. Just get the Hellboy here.
It's because I hate math, so I would prefer to check yours instead of doing counting.
Oh, sure. So let's do OBJ here, and let's see, Hellboy mid resolution. So this is the mid resolution. Let's see, the low resolution is this one. This is probably not the latest or anything, but it should be good enough. Okay, this is gonna be body color, horns, body color. That should be. Is this the lowest res? Mid res 42. Let's try that one. It's hard to tell which one is the low resolution here. I think this is all mid resolution. Let's get an old one.
Kris.
Yeah.
Did you create any specific brush for the body, like you did on the face, or?
No, I'm not like in the process just yet, like detailing the body. But I'm gonna do it, I think, more generic, to tell you the truth. I'm gonna get more into hands and things like that, but I don't know exactly how I'm gonna approach the rest because it's not detailed yet, right? So this is the Hellboy model, and if I open just rendering, actually modeling UV editor, let's see how many we have here. We have a bunch. So for the Hellboy, you see like the face, it's here. So the face is like 2 UDIMs for the face, right? It's similar to what I have for the other ones. But if we start counting the whole thing, UDIMs go to 10. So we have 34 UDIMs for everything. So 34 UDIMs, like I mentioned before in one of my, those sessions, if I have 50% area used here, in this case here, I probably don't need to use 8Ks. I think I can use all 4Ks. So let's get my calculator here just for a second. And let's say I have 30, so I have 34 spaces, 34 UDIMs. So 34 times 16 million, which is basically like how many polygons possible you have in a 4K map. So that's basically 544 million, right? But if I consider that I'm using like probably like 50% in average of each one of those spaces, that's basically like half of that. So so that's basically like divided by 2. There's 272 million polygons I have here worth of detail, approximately, right? Like it's not like a certain thing, but considering that my model in HD has about 250 million polygons, I think about 272 it's kind of enough to cover the whole thing.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm back to Portland. And you see, like I'm trying to keep them a little bit closer together. And then here I'm gonna start to actually make them a little bit more separate to blend with that distance that I got established right there. And it's kind of like, if you imagine this, every time you're doing something, you have to try to imagine why things are happening in a certain way. So for example, sometimes you don't notice, but if you use a little bit of logic, it's like if you look at the forms themselves, like for the face, you have the cheeks and they are pretty much like pre-inflated, right? Especially if you're smiling, it's almost like they're gonna become like little balloons in here. So it's natural that the pores that are supposed to be much closer together, they get a little bit more spread out around this area. Even when you don't have the smile like that, the cheeks have more volume, right? Like they're the most volumetric thing in your face, I believe, you know? And then, especially if you're a little chubby, right? You're gonna have a lot. So then you're gonna notice like that naturally they're gonna look a little bit more spread out than other areas, right? So it's all a matter of like thinking about how and why those things are happening that way, and try to keep consistent, right? So if I have a little bit more spread out here, and I'm going to one area that's not that stretched, then I'm gonna naturally get them a little bit closer together.
Hey Kris, one question.
Yeah.
This is regarding the referencing stage because I couldn't be on that live stream. And sorry for my English. Anyway.
No problem. No problem.
So I want to ask now the Michelangelo stuff that you're doing now.
Yeah.
When you do referencing in Google, you don't get much references, right? So
yeah.
When you build the face, are you mainly like you're doing your own imagination on the face structure or what?
Yeah, it's pretty much like I think it's my favorite kind of work, to tell you the truth, because there's a lot of room for being creative, right? So like you said, I mean, like I don't have a lot of references of the guy. I have like the story that I know about, you know, his habits as you know, when he was alive and everything. And of course, like you can always crisscross like references, like try to find someone with a similar age, for example, or similar, you know, ethnic, you know, for example, Italian or whatever, you know, and then try to find someone from there. And then when I was looking for profile, for example, I didn't have a picture of his profile. There's a drawing of his profile. I think that's the only one I found. And then I was trying to imagine like how did he look like without a beard, because I had no reference. So I went to actually one of the Leonardo da Vinci's drawings, and I was looking at his old man, because he has like all those amazing caricatures, like very stylized actually. And I was looking at some of them and tried to imagine, you know, it's like someone of that period of time, because they're pretty much like they lived that same time, you know, without a beard, and then kind of like, you know, borrowing something like that. But then of course, like every time you get something else, a new reference to your folder, is like, okay, I got another piece of the puzzle, right? So this one, now I can actually see how that thing actually works, and then you incorporate it. But I'm constantly revisiting. I'm very unhappy with the volumes of his forehead and cranium in general, like how wide his mouth is at this point and things like that. But I mean, like it can be anything, because there is nothing of him without the beard. So it can be anything. But it's great because it's a nice exercise, you know. It's like it's really using your imagination. And all this stuff I'm explaining to you guys here, I refer very little to actual reference. I was showing you guys on the side here just to compare things, just to make something visual for you. But very rarely I kind of like go to those references. I kind of like have an idea kind of in my head, and I kind of like try to incorporate. But then if I get in trouble and I want to see, you know, like the stretching or something like that, then I go and I refer to something. But it's a very, there's a lot of freedom, you know, about the way I approach portraits. And I know that some people are more like technical and they want to do like more like the real deal. And I have nothing against that. But to me, it's almost like every new piece like that to me is a brand new thing that I can explore a lot, you know. And if you can do that in a very like with a lot of freedom, and you still create something that's believable and people can actually believe that's an actual physical thing, you know, they can touch, that's like a success, you know. It's like, and if you have the eyes looking alive, there's a soul in there, that's even better, you know, because there's a lot of like perfect models out there based on scan data, and then there's texturing XYZ and all this stuff like on top, which is beautiful, but then it lacks soul for some reason, you know. It's like there's something that's missing in the eyes. So yeah, I'd rather have something like, it can be a cartoon that's not, you know, it's like it's not a perfect model or anything, but it has soul, you know, something you can actually connect to, than a model that you just cannot connect. It's just like, okay, it's cool. It looks like proportions are realistic because it's based on the scan. It cannot be more realistic than that. In my case, my models, they have a level of stylization, right? You're going to look at them. They're going to look convincing, but probably not hyper realistic or something like that, because they are not based on real forms, right? They're all idealized forms. But I like that, you know, because at work, most of us here, we are professionals, and a lot of us do like work with digital doubles. And it's boring work, you know. It's like, it's just like using scan data and cleaning things up, and there's not a lot of space for being creative in there. So when people see this kind of work that I do, and they imagine like, man, this is a lot of work. Is it not boring? You know, it doesn't get boring. And it was like, it doesn't get boring because, like I said, like each one is a different canvas for exploration, in my opinion. Because I'm not like, you know, anal about like, you know, it's like being completely obsessed with the you know, technicalities, you know, just like being free to do whatever I want with it. And I think that's the beauty of this whole thing, you know, this process to me, is to explore your own creativity in a way that you can actually create something believable and realistic without using the texture XYZ. It was very cool to actually post one of those works. I think the first one I posted was Dick Smith and then Rick Baker. When I posted those, Jeremy from Texturing XYZ, who is a great guy, is a friend of mine, and he offered me his textures a couple of times. I actually got a couple of his packages, but then I said, man, you're offering to the wrong person because I'm in a different type of trip, you know. I'm probably not going to use your stuff. And he gave me anyway, so I have them stored. But it was funny because when I posted some of my work and I had just the textures appearing without the displacement, and it was basically just the albedo. And he said, man, this albedo looks a lot like the albedo we are capturing in the studio. And you did it by hand. I was like, yeah, that's, you know, that's the cool thing about it, that you can actually just observe and then recreate, you know.
That's really
It's a nice compliment from the guy. Yeah, he's a great dude. I really hope like he has a ton of success, you know. He's a very hard working guy and very honest, so I hope the best for him. It's just like I'm the wrong person for his product, but it's a great product, no doubt about it. We use it in the studio, so yeah, it's great.
But when it comes to 3D printing, but I think your method is the best way. I mean, because with you know, the small scale models, you can't get all the micro details on the print itself.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
This method is the best way for even for the 3D printing. You know, you can get your own scale of the skin pores and all.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about like it's a couple of offers. People on my Instagram, there's some guys, like traditional guys, who actually offer me. There's a guy who worked with Rick Baker for like, I don't know, man, 20 years. He actually worked with Kazu as well, doing those amazing prints. Not prints, like the casts for those gigantic sculptures. They have the Abraham Lincoln and all those guys. And he has a Dick Smith as well. It's pretty big. His dick is bigger than mine. His Dick Smith is bigger than mine. But he offered actually, you know, it's like if you want to convert any of your models one day to a sculpture, actually, you know, it's like to a physical thing, I can cast them in silicon for you. You know, I was like, man, that's in the back of my head. You know, it's like I'm really thinking about doing this at some point. And a lot of people who actually work with 3D prints, they said the same thing that you said, you know. They said like it's at the end of the day, if you work with scans, for example, you scan a traditional piece of art, there's so much like cleanup necessary sometimes, you know. It's like, and you have to re-add a lot of stuff, make sure that everything is clean to be able to get a clean mold, right? Like the mold out of a model like this, it's a much cleaner mold than, you know, having something that's full of noise from the scan. Yeah, so I'm excited about it. I really think about it. And I have my 3D print basically like in the garage here, collecting dust for like 2 years. It's a nice Form 2, you know. It's like, I know they have the Form 3 now, which is amazing. But the Form 2, the few prints I did, they're so nice. And I promised myself that by the end of the year, I'm gonna have a ton of prints. Like my plan is to start like printing everything, all the unfinished stuff, because I get into this thing about like I get hyper perfectionist and I never print anything because it's not perfect enough. It's never gonna be, because I keep just rotating those models, like trying to, you know, trying to escape from them, because otherwise I'm gonna have to try to make them perfect. But I promised myself that I'm gonna at least print one of them of each, so I can actually see how they look like in 3D. And if some stuff, and if something holds up, then fine, you know. It's like if it doesn't, then I know exactly what I have to do to make it hold up. So I that's my plan, is to print a lot of stuff for sure. It's like the last half an hour you're talking here, yapping. I pretty much like add a ton of detail here already. It's not that slow at the end of the day, you know. It's like it's just a matter of getting distracted. Instead of like talking to you guys, I would probably be just like with my headphones, listen to some heavy metal and then classical music and then jazz and then some blues and everything mixed together. Everything but pop music for me goes. Nothing against pop music. Nothing in favor either.
Hey, Kris.
Hi.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I know the HD geometry does not support the H layers. How can you control this pore or some detail?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, because as I mentioned in a previous session, I kind of use a very traditional kind of approach. So, for example, if I see, if I start seeing my sculpture here as a piece of clay, and I'm just like detailing the clay, if it doesn't work, what I do, I just erase it and I just resculpt it. For example, like if you are getting too deep with your details, for example, right? If you did an entire chunk and it got a little bit too deep, look, it missed the geometry right there. Look, I missed a little line in there, this side. I'm gonna have to resculpt there. So if it got too deep, for example, I can go back in the resolution, right? I go back to the lowest resolution here, and I can smooth this area. And then when I go back up, I can get that area a little bit less deep, right? Like I can actually modulate like that. I can mix some other layers as well, not layers, but other brushes with it. I can, yeah, it's like it's selectively smoothing things and then resculpting, you know. There is a plan to have ZBrush supporting way more stuff. But I'm gonna have, it's a little bit of my fault actually, because I'm the one kind of pushing this HD geometry thing, especially since the summit that a lot of people got like, oh man, HD geometry, I saw your presentation, blah, blah. And then at the end of that presentation, I was with Ofer, and he stopped me at the door actually at ZBrush Central, ZBrush Summit. And then he said, I need to talk to you. I was like, sure. And he said, you know, HD geometry was actually put in ZBrush when it was still 16 bits, right? Not 32. Actually, 32 bits, not 64. And a lot of stuff we made in terms of advancements with the 64 bits. So there's a lot of room to improve the HD geometry. And then he said, what I want to do, I want you to come with your wife. And we're going to get together with my wife, and we're going to have dinner together, and we're going to talk about this stuff and what kind of features you want implemented with HD, which was super nice. And the funny thing is that he lives here in the Bay Area. He's probably like, I would say like 25 minutes from my home. So it's easy to drive. But I always have to set up this meeting. I think I have to talk to Jaime LaBelle and then ask him to set it up. And but I'm gonna promise, you know, it's like I'm gonna do something about it. We have to have layer support for it, and I think it's gonna happen. So,
okay.
Not right now. Yeah.
And also, did you use HD geometry in the production?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Oh, actually, I got emails from you guys. I asked actually for some feedback for the class. So far, it's like it's pretty nice, you know. It's like getting all your feedbacks, and some questions were regarding that, you know, it's like about production. And although I cannot get into details about production, I can tell you that I use HD geometry in production at ILM. since 2012. I started with the Avengers, and for the Avengers, I work on the Hulk, and also those flying eels. You know, it's like the I don't know how they named them at the end of the day, but basically those gigantic, almost like whales with some armors in there, and those are all HD geometry. And this was 2012, and since that time up to now, every single model I work at ILM, I use HD geometry. And like I said, I mean, like if they need me to change something, I just like, I got fast enough that I can just erase that chunk and just do it again. But I normally don't go that far before I show a nice concept to them. So I do like a 3D model that's kind of like a concept so they can know what the plan is. And then I do, you know, I do everything with HD. The plan is that I think the majority of the studios, they chop their models in several pieces and they just use non-HD and then they assemble everything together at the end. There are a couple of techniques you can use. For example, like you can use like a band. So you have like two partitions. You create almost like one partition overlapping the next one. So you have like a band in the middle. So you basically like you grow that partition plus the band and then you sculpt. And then you create, you use the other partition and then the band again, and then you sculpt. And then that overlap area, you can actually blend either in Photoshop or any texture artist can blend it for you. But it's a lot of work. And then with my models, I mean, when I deliver stuff to them, there is no need to do anything. It's basically like they get the model the way it is. It's a 32-bit bit map. And then I give them the cavity map and the 16-bit map. So it's basically like I give them a 32, 16 in the cavity map. And to generate the cavity map and the 16, I normally use my own script in Photoshop. I actually did an action. I created an action script in Photoshop that can take a 32-bit displacement map and convert it to cavity. And the cavities look exactly like the ZBrush cavities, like the ones you paint by hand. Look super nice. And the advantage is that works with any map. So if I have a HD geometry map, it's basically like it's almost instant. I can generate, for example, like let's say like 30 cavity maps out of displacement maps in probably like 10 minutes. You know, it's like it's super fast to export. Yeah, I love that process. But yeah, I definitely use for everything. You know, including the current show I'm working on right now. It's like it's HD geometry like straight away. Doing like a lot of environment stuff and then some character stuff, and it's all HD.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Kris, how many custom brushes you are using for the whole face?
Custom brushes here?
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point here, like the ones I show you guys, which is basically like this stretchy one, the random pores, another 2, so 3, 4 with this pore here, and then the pimples probably like 5, and then probably it's just gonna be like maybe like total probably like 6 or 7 different brushes, and that's it
for the whole face.
Yeah, I think so, because a lot of this stuff are going to be sculpted by hand. You know, it's like when it comes like to carving the wrinkles are all hand carved, and you see like this one is already very stretched because it's not like I was super careful the way I was pulling stuff around. So a lot of stuff is wobbly. So all this stuff are going to be resculpted by hand, which I kind of love because all this process I can, you know, record and then post for you guys to see. So you can actually see the entire process, you know. What I can do, I can actually keep like working on it. And after I shut off like the recordings here, and then I can simply keep recording everything in ZBrush and then just like generate the how you call like the time lapse, right, of the entire thing, so I can see exactly what I did. But yeah, it's just it takes time, but I mean, it's not too bad. Like I mean, I cover a good spot in there, and then I'm gonna keep going in here and then clean it up. Everything on the sides gonna have to resculpt there, and then what I'm gonna do, I think I'm gonna keep going just with this primary pores, just like get them all in place, and then stop right there today. And then tomorrow, when I go back to the detail, then we can go to the next layers and the pimples and everything. So at least I don't, it's not like you know, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to hide anything. So it's nice if we can just stop, and then, you know, if I'm bored, I can move to some other model, and then come back to this one and then keep going with that process. detailing the face, if it's the entire thing, is going to take more time than what's going to take here. But because I already have some stuff I'm going to be reusing, so it shouldn't be too long. But we're going to be a couple of, a few days, I think, like in details. And of course, like any questions in between, I can, keep responding. But it's part of the process. So if you guys have, a model you have in progress right now, that's a good time to just like exercise those things, Start by creating those brushes I just show you guys. You can pause the video and see how I made them, right? Like it's pretty clear, I guess, like the forms. But at the end of the day, it's gonna be your own creation, right? When people ask me for free stuff, in the past I would give a lot of stuff for free. I mean, I have a website, I had a lot of tutorials and everything. And then over time, a lot of people start like using my stuff, like eye texture and whatever, never giving me credit or anything, just like stealing it straight away. So I kind of like, and then there's this whole process of me spending time, precious time to learn all those things, it's like, and just like poking around and seeing what happened, what works, what doesn't. And you're getting a lot of this information basically like filter right now. You don't need to suffer through a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff you're going to get straight away. But I believe like teaching you how to fish is always better, it's like, because it's very necessary that you guys feel the pain of doing those things so you can actually understand how they actually work, it's like, it's like anything, any other discipline to learn a musical instrument, it's like, it's not going to be instant. It's going to take time. And it's just a matter of like, if you have someone to show you exactly at least the results, it's like, and how you're getting there, then it's, I think you guys can totally nail it, It's just a matter of like really putting the time, because unless you want to go to the texturing XYZ route, that's totally fine with me if you guys want to speed up your stuff. But if you want to bear with me and just like try to do, at least try, first do manually. And if you're hitting a wall and you want to get stuff done, then, by all means, just like use anything you guys want.
Can you use the Morph target brush with HD geometry?
Just in the non-HD geometry part of it, right? Because if I try to create a Morph target here, it's not gonna work. Like it's super heavy, right? I have 35 million polygons. But if you want to do, for example, in the lowest levels, then you can do that. It's like before HD. Yeah, it comes with limitations for sure, but what you get for free, it's amazing, dude. Especially when it comes to exporting those maps, the speed you get is, I exported all those maps like for this entire face here in about 8 minutes. And it would take me like hours to do if it was like 35 million polygons, out of non-HD for sure.
Just not having to break up your model into tons of subtools.
Exactly.
That's huge.
And seamless, it's like you export the displacement maps, you're done. There's no seams. You see my models, like people ask like, oh, dude, you have like a cut right in the middle of the face. I was like, dude, this makes no difference because 32 bits and it's absolutely seamless.
Yep. You need to ask the ZBrush guys to give you a way to organize your pattern in diamond shapes with rotations on the brush alpha.
Yeah.
You could do this in seconds, and I bet they could do the little magic on their side probably in seconds, and it would save you so much time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's a lot of stuff like when it comes to directionality of the brushes that I thought about doing, it's like in asking them. And it's funny because Ofer, he's like the guy is a freaking genius, right? But he operates in a different frequency from other human beings, and he does everything at his own time. And the thing is, like, you're talking to him, and he's the kind of guy, like, at first you think, like, dude, he's not paying attention to anything I'm saying. But his head is registering everything. It's like he's actually keeping everything saved. It was so funny. Like, I went to my first SIGGRAPH, I believe it was like 2005. I went to SIGGRAPH and I met Ofer for the first time. And then I was talking to him and everything. And I mentioned it. It was like back in the day. And I said, so you guys have this entire technology of doing like, it's like you can draw in the space and all this stuff. And then you have the Z-spheres. And then what if you had a combination of both? It's like, what if you could draw in, with freedom, in the space with the Z-spheres, you know, it's like you could build like trees or something like that. And he said, yeah, whatever, right? So I kind of like didn't pay a lot of attention. And then many years later, like Z-Sketch comes up, and it's exactly what I said, you know, it's like, you know, painting with Z-spheres in the space. And it was like, man, the guy saved it somehow.
He eventually got to it.
Yeah. I mean, like he does his own thing, you know. It's like it, yeah. And the thing is, like, it's his passion, right? And there's this misconception that people believe that Ofer, he's not like a real 3D guy because, you know, he created this app that's like 2.5D or whatever. But the thing is, like, Ofer worked for Sega, you know, in the past. The guy is like, he has a past in the, I think, games and stuff. And if you remember, like, there is a couple of years ago, we had this plugin that came with ZBrush that was just for exporting normal maps. And it was absolutely OpenGL. Everything was OpenGL. And I believe that's what we have for the noisemaker nowadays. I think it's an OpenGL interface, you know. So it's not like he doesn't know it. It's just that this is the most optimal way to actually work with a ton of polygons, right? I mean, like, work with 35 million polygons like butter like this. I mean, like, there's no other app that does that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's his own thing, man. Guys, has to be respected. Let's see what time that is. Oh, we have 6 minutes, and please, by all means, guys, anything related to the class or is slightly unrelated, I'm fine. Like, if I have to jump to some other model, totally fine. And you see, like, how much trust, right? Like, that at this point, I didn't save this file at all. I was like, fuck, man. So let me do this.
It's gonna crash on save.
Yeah, totally. So check this out. I could save it right here. I don't remember having any trouble saving under the HD geometry mode recently, but in the past, sometimes I would get some random crashes. So just to avoid it, just prevent it, I'm just gonna press A to get out of it. So actually can show you how it looks like in the non-HD part of it. You're gonna see those little bumps in there. And then I'm gonna save from that point on. Another thing that I don't know, see, like, you can see them in the non-HD, it's kind of baked in there. But the funny thing is that if I smooth them out right now, they're gonna completely, at this point here, I can smooth them and they're gonna completely disappear. But then if I go to HD, they're gonna be there. And then if I get out of the HD, it's not that they're gonna reappear again, they're gonna be still gone. It's kind of weird. There is this disconnect between the maps saved in this virtual space and then what is in here. So it's like it's not like you can trust what's in here, but once you switch to the HD mode, then you can trust what's in there. So I'm gonna save it. Stay on Winston ZBrush, and then I'm gonna put, I'm gonna start naming it now. Stan HD1, that's the first of many. And let's see how big this file is actually. One thing you're gonna notice is that in this case here, my model is completely covered with HD. There's a lot of very shitty parts because it was reused for another model, but it's all completely covered. So the size of my file probably gonna be pretty big because everything is covered. But if you started a model from scratch, you're gonna start the file growing as you add more HD detail to it. So for example, like you started just like sculpting the lips, and you just did the lips and you saved your HD file, it's gonna be one size. But then as soon as you did like the entire cheeks and the lips together, then it's gonna be bigger. And then you added the detail in the ears, it's gonna get bigger. And then it keeps growing until it reaches a limit of saturation of detail you can have in the face, you know. So it's taking a little bit, probably gonna be around, I don't know, I guess like 1.2 something gigs, let's see. So they are big files. Let's see, open. And see, 1.2 gigs. So it went from 100 megabytes that was before HD to 1.2 gigabytes.
So let me ask this.
Yeah.
Something I ran into in the past is once you get past 4 gigs, the file will not open. It just always is corrupted.
Oh man, it happened to me as well. Yeah, I try to keep my files under like 2.5 gigs. And if it passes that, I try to optimize it, you know. See, I did it again. I just enter HD with the inner mouth and inner eyes. Yeah, I try to optimize, man. I delete anything I don't need, you know. And another thing about the saving those projects is that the project always takes in account everything that's in here, right? So for example, if I already have my files saved, I can just like delete everything else that I don't need. So I'm gonna just keep the subtool I need. So I'm gonna delete, you can just click delete all in here, delete all, always, blah, blah, blah. Delete this big one here. That's that one that I baked. That's like 12 million polygons already. So I'm gonna delete all. The Pore, and delete all. And then this one I created for checking the UVs, delete all. And then now I have just what I need, right? I'm gonna try to resave it just to see, compare the sizes, how much we saved in there by switching to Geico. Let's see. All right. Should be a little bit, at least a little bit smaller, probably like 1 gig. Just guessing. But yeah, the reason I have this whole project going on that I started with one of the models was to be able to reuse stuff. So for example, like if I have a nice skin shader with nice settings that works most of the time, and I have like a HD geometry detail that's kind of there, but of course, like you saw, I'm gonna have to redo a lot of it, but at least like fillers, areas that I don't need to sculpt. Anytime I can save, I take it, you know, like skin color, I can actually go and make it darker or whatever, you know, and then tweak all the specifics of the skin. But the overall color I can just reuse, and that way I can have like concept models very fast. That's why you see when I posted on Instagram, you know, it's like, oh, it took me 3 days, and then I post a full render with skin in color and everything. But if you look closely, it's not perfect at all. It's just like I have something because it was basically like reused. Well, actually went down to less than 900 megabytes, which is great.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a good save right there. So yeah, let's see. We're kind of like 11:29, so I have time for one more question, I guess.
Okay, one more then. If you, at this point, say you wanted to define the wrinkles on the eyes a bit more,
yeah,
that would not re-import back into the HD version?
Re-import? What do you mean re-import?
Like, if you know how like on a regular ZBrush without HD,
yeah,
if I change something on a lower res, it calculates to the higher reses.
Oh yeah, it does that as well. It's just
Okay.
like it's not like that's the weird thing, you know. It's like it's not a one-to-one translation. So if I change anything here, like bigger forms, when I go to HD, they are going to be represented in there, right? But in HD, if I have something and I add something, for example, this area here is very smooth right here, the nose. If I add some pores right now, like some deep ones in the nose in HD mode, and I go back here, you're going to see the pores in here for sure. They're going to be represented. But then if here, again, before HD, I just go and I smooth everything. When I enter HD again, actually the model, the file is saved right now, so I can show you exactly what I mean. So if I do a preview in here, right? So I'm going to preview this, and you see I have all those nice pores in there, in the cheeks. So what I'm going to do, when I go to the non-HD, I'm going to have them in there, right? So I'm going to smooth them out now. So the file is saved. I can just recover whatever I do here. So it's all smooth now, right? So I'm going to enter HD again, just in this area. So you see the pores are still there. They're just like a little shallower because I did this smoothing in there, but they are there. But now if I go back to the non-HD, I would expect that at least something would be there. Unless they change something in ZBrush, but it should be pretty smooth. See, completely smooth. So it's not there. So there is this little disconnect between like the passing from non-HD to HD that actually doesn't quite translate perfectly. Now, if I go back to the HD again and I sculpt those pores deeper, they're probably going to show up here again, you know?
Could you like just sculpt a scar in his cheek real quick and
Sure.
then go back and forth?
Yeah, let's see what happens. So let's see my standard, get my, funny that I don't have the brush saved then, and everything I have, every time I have to recreate it because I'm so lazy. Oh, not this one. Stroke 0.02. Okay. So you mean like sculpting HD?
No, in just regular mode.
Oh, non-HD. Okay.
Yeah,
No.
and just sculpt like a deep scar into his cheek.
Sure. Yeah. So
Cool.
this should be fine. So if I go there, it should be there. Because I use a lot of this, for example. So that's HD right there. I use a lot of this to sculpt like mid-resolution stuff. So a lot of times, I mean, like you only go HD if you're gonna go for the super detailed thing, right? But if you're looking for sculpting stuff that it wasn't supposed to be baked in HD, for example, like you said, if I'm sculpting scars here, let's go a little bit lower than that. Or I'm just doing like mid-resolution stuff. For example, let's just say I have some wrinkles like this. They're not deep, you know, they're just to add some kind of detail. I'm being completely random in here. I'm not concerned at all. Just to show you what I mean. So, and then I'm gonna have like a bigger brush with even smaller intensity, just to create some kind of like, you know, just some irregular stuff like that. Then I do this a lot in this mode here in the highest resolution of the non-HD mode, instead of going to HD and trying to fight the pores and all that stuff. Because as you know, like if you do anything on top of those pores, it's slowly going to start like obliterating them, right? Unless you use the elastic one. The elastic brush is the only one that actually preserves 100% of the detail. It just pulls and pushes without destroying them. But in this case here, if I have this area, right, and then I have all that detail in there, just added, even though they are kind of subtle, if I go to HD, they should be preserved in there. So you're going to see them. See? They're all there. Yeah. So, yeah. So I'm going to continue doing some more pore work here today. And but like I said, I'm not going to go to the next level of adding like pimples or anything like that. It's going to be just repeating what I'm doing already, just to cover that entire area first. And then tomorrow when we come back, then we can start exploring the other passes, right? And I hope you guys enjoyed. And I'm enjoying a lot, by the way. Like I'm having fun talking to you guys every day. And yeah, and being able to create something in real time too is pretty cool. So have a great night or a great day if I don't know what time that is. And then today you should get an invite, you know, it's like for the reviews this weekend. Oh, and another thing, just to show off, we're gonna show here. Let's see if you guys can see it. See what that is?
No.
How do I need to blow up that screen.
So I'm gonna read to you guys. It's from Prop Store, right? The Ultimate Movie Collectibles, and then it says Certificate of Authenticity, and this is from Rick Baker, Rolling Auction, Hellboy, Ron Perlman, Appliance Lot. So what happened today? The nicest supervisor that I have, Jason Smith. This guy is awesome, dude. He actually called me at work and he said, like, you know, I'm getting rid of a couple of props in here. And then if you are interested, I have something here for you. I was like, oh, sure. So I go there. There's a giant box. And I was like, he said, like, oh, you're modeling Hellboy. So I have some stuff here from the Hellboy movie. And I was like, seriously? I was like, yeah. So I got the box. I thanked him and everything. And then and I brought it to my office and I opened it. It's basically like the chest. Hellboy is like the appliance for the actual movie, right? The chest and neck have the face, the head, and an arm, like full size arm. So I have everything in a box. I'm gonna put everything up. I'm gonna take some pictures, probably show off online at some point. And but it's super nice, man. Like it's from Rick Baker. So yeah, I'm so thrilled. I got this today. I was like, fuck, man. Anyway. Thanks, guys. Awesome. I see you tomorrow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. Great class.
Thanks, Kris.
Thanks, guys.
Good day,
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.